Just as a start for 10, is it more important now to look at the world around and create stories that reflect perception that lives with kids are more difficult? Or is it more important just to have a strong story from the outset?
It's a very complicated world we're living in now with many, many challenges.
Rightly so. There's a huge push for diversity, both on screen and off screen.
The globalization of everything, has its huge benefits, but also we have to remember that children are all over the world and have their specific cultural differences, and it's very hard to try and sort of connect with all children.
We do look at our slate as a whole and see, all right, are there gaps in the slate? Is there something that we should be attempting to develop to fill that gap?
We need to be kind of responding and more reactive to what's happening, in terms of what kids are creating themselves, what they're looking at, the type of content they're consuming, and being as responsive as we possibly can in our sector, both broadcast and production.
We have a preschool series in development now. One of the main purposes of the series is to show a very diverse cast, a diverse living situation, and just kind of exposing a younger audience to that.
Now that I've got like an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old at home, it's like, I wanted to do something which explained social media to them because I couldn't do it. I knew it was coming. They were going to ask me questions about, how should I behave online and so on.
At Magic Light, we're probably mostly known for our 30-minute animation specials based on the works of Julia Donson and Axel Scheffler, probably the most famous being the Gruffalo. There are 2 half-hour Gruffalo films. There's Gruffalo and there's Gruffalo's Child. But after that, there's no further story. There's nothing else happens to the Gruffalo. But we wanted to continue to produce half hours. The BBC wanted us to continue to make them. So we began to think about how do we extend the world but still keep it together.
Many years ago, I worked on a picture book that Walker Books published that actually ended up becoming Henry Hugglemonster on Disney. Seeing that journey and being part of that journey, there was a lot in the news at the time about children in the UK being unhappy, and that Wellington College, one of the lecturers was teaching happiness to children at that time. So we're talking about 2007, 2008. And the team at Brown Bag, who I was working with on this project, thought that would be a very interesting thing to think about, how we sort of make Henry Hugglemonster embrace and, sort of have an ethos around happiness. So that was putting something into an IP that was sort of reflecting society, if that makes sense. We started with a non-narrative book with great characters, but we needed to be connecting with children, and that's how we found our connection.
It's a moving target. It's evolving constantly. That landscape shifts all the time.
Sometimes it can feel like, we're trying to predict the future.
I think it's really difficult, Nick. I think it's really difficult. I think you have to stay relevant.
We're talking to a newer audience, a slightly younger audience. So actually we need to now know how all those audiences are thinking. What are they watching? What are they connecting? What are they relating to? Because we're not that audience anymore, as it were. What does the audience look like? What do they want to know? Is it connecting? We, again, as content creators ourselves, we're incredibly delighted with what's being produced, but we're also very, very close to it. So I think it's quite easy to just assume that people are going to think like you do.
I have 2 grown-up children. It's very hard for me to stay relevant. I mean, it was easier when I had younger children, because I was imbued and watching what they were watching. I was watching them, I was watching reactions, I was watching their friends. And you learn, you pick up an awful lot when you have young children. But I don't have that now, so I have to keep my eyes and ears open. I like to talk to children.
Knowing who you're talking to, knowing what you're producing and what you're creating to ensure that they can connect to it and it's relevant for them is really important.
I'm a big proponent of research.
It's a really important part of the development process. And as we said before, at the beginning, as you're going through, and even when it's on air, really keeping an eye on what's working and what isn't working. It's an ongoing process as far as I'm concerned.
We realized, to look at it from the point of view of the child, and that was really came from the research. It was like, it's very, very attractive place, the internet, social media, if you're a child, and you just don't want to hear about the bad stuff. So take that as your starting point.
Pins and Nettie is a preschool series. It's for 3 to 5-year-olds, and it's about 2 hedgehog best friends who are shy. We had to do that properly, and we had to do it constructively so that it would make sense for our audience. So we actually did take the time, and we worked with a research and educational consultant, and she came up with and wrote and designed the shyness curriculum. And that's what the entire series is based on. Like, Pins and Nettie wouldn't be the same show without its research component.
But it's just getting the kind of particular detail that might set an episode apart or might really kind of give you an edge with the way you tell the story.
I was showrunning a preschool series a couple years ago. We researched early scripts and animatics. And this had no basis in academia, but like the male character, the male lead character, for some reason, was never chosen as a favorite. When we got it in front of the kids, it didn't work. And we needed to pivot a bit. We looked at his personality. We looked at the traits that we had given him. We looked at his design. We looked at his voice. And, and with the help of the research consultant on that show, figured out like, okay, let's try this. And we did eventually get to a place where that character was being chosen as a favorite. So, and the character was seen as aspirational.
Being as informed as you can about your audience it doesn't make it, nothing is guaranteed a success. Nothing. But I mean, I know when I've worked on really strong properties that have done well, you know that you have the things in place that are going to give it the best chance. And research is part of that.
I mean, I would say time is often the barrier to doing research. Once you get the green light for a series, it's very often, you've been waiting for this green light. Now here's the green light. And then it's like, go, go, go. Like the schedule gets very intense very quickly.
That's a financial challenge, which is funding.
I think probably some of the barriers for me to research is that actually research can sometimes feel like it could be endless.
You're absolutely right. You can go down a very dark tunnel, and it's not just in the research part, it's also with the broadcaster or several broadcasters. Everyone's got their own opinion.
But, data is sort of addictive, really, isn't it? And you kind of just want to keep exploring more and understanding more about your consumer base.
I mean, the thing I was going to mention also was the importance of great partners.
I mean, for me, the people, like I have my 2 or 3 go-to research educational consultants that I will always choose to work with them if I have a say in who I get to work with. And what I love about these people is they're collaborative.
There is an element of soundboarding going on at various iterations in the process.
The researchers I work with don't dictate, like it has to be this way. They suggest ways that can improve and aid in comprehension. And then it's up to me and whoever else is on my team as the creator, as the showrunner, as the development person, to decide what to implement and how to implement.
Why treat your research partner any different than your production partner? I mean, they've got to fit. You've got to have a good fit. You want to work with good people. You want to work with bright people. You want to work with people that are forward-thinking, looking, nothing is, we can't do it because that's just not the way it's done.
It's about forming relationships that will last.
Why do you think that it's important for studios to conduct research?
I think there's 3 good reasons why studios should invest in research. The first one being insight, and that's insight into kids' lives and their content worlds and what they're watching, what they're engaging with, what they're sharing, what they're talking about. And also specifically looking at kids' animation viewing worlds or live action viewing worlds to find out what they're watching and why. The second one is comprehension, seeing if kids understand what the cartoon or the show is about. Kids need to understand it or find something relatable in the content or the idea to be able to engage or connect with it. And then the third one is development. So harnessing kids' amazing imaginations, which they have. By sharing ideas with kids in the early stages, you can harness that creativity and imagination, and they will probably come up with some really great ideas of how to develop the idea or the show.
And how different is that for broadcasters?
I actually think it's all really similar. I guess the only difference is with a broadcaster, there'll probably be more specific questions about channel fit and brand fit and also marcoms. So they'll be looking at who is the target audience for this show? How should it best be marketed to kids? What are the elements from the show that should be picked out that are going to excite kids and immediately get their interest?
Is there a normal process for kids' research?
So first of all, we have a kick-off meeting where we discuss the idea, what you want to find out and who you want to test your idea with. We then go away and recruit the number of kids that you need or the number of kids you have a budget for. And then we actually then test the idea with those kids. And we test the idea as thoroughly as we can. And then we pull together a report for you. And that report will be very action and development focused. So this is what we found out, and this is what you could do with what we found out. That's where we bring in our 20 plus years of experience of testing animation. We know what creators and studios need to know to be able to develop ideas.
We've been speaking to a number of producers, and we've worked with a lot of broadcasters in the past, and the issues that they face with research are often twofold. One, to do with money and paying for it. 2, time, because they've got tight timescales.
In terms of timings, just because of our experience and the sectors we work in, so we work in kids and youth predominantly, and we do a lot of content development. By the very nature of what we do as a business, we have to work quickly. So we have to be agile, we have to be flexible. If you've got a tight turnaround, the momentum, passion and energy is much higher because you don't have too much time to keep thinking or procrastinating. You've just got to get on with it. In terms of budget, of course, budgets are always going to be tight for anybody, particularly now. But I think we're very sympathetic as an agency with that, particularly with smaller studios who don't have budget for research. Over the years, we've put together packages to particularly help studios. So we have an animation package. It's a great way for studios and creators to test something with kids. That's offering a smaller sample, but a quick turnaround and a minimal budget. We also have Chatterground, and that's specifically looking at kids' lives, what they're into, what content they're into at the moment, and their viewing world. So you might only have 1 or 2 big questions around an idea, and Chatterground would be the perfect place for that because you'd get a broad sample, and you would get answers to your questions without investing in a bespoke research project, which can cost more. The investment in research at the beginning can really pay off in the long term because we can help you understand whether that idea is a good one and how that idea can develop to land with kids and have the biggest appeal when taking it out to a range of broadcasters.